I entered my first game jam. For those that don't know what a game jam is, it's when a bunch of game developers get together and make games. Once all the developers finish their games, they are voted on and hopefully ranked to the top. The game jam I entered was the mini jam, which had the theme colors. But another twist to it is it had a limitation. And this limitation was, you are your own enemy. Before getting started with this game jam, I knew I needed help with art, especially with the theme being colors. So I decided to invite my sister Whitney, who is a graphic design artist. The first step in the process, brainstorming. We thought of a few ideas for being your own worst enemy, some of which include motivation, having a mirrored self, and when completing a level, adding an object in that same level to make it harder to go through the next time. In the end, we decided to do two of those options and put them together. Those two were motivation and at the end of a level, adding another object. We came up with a lot more ideas on that and eventually came to this. We had this guy working in a 9-to-5 job, and if he procrastinated too long, he would lose. How we incorporated this in a game was by having a guy move from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen to finish a task in their day. But as time goes on, more and more tasks will be laid upon him. The more tasks there are, the more objects appear on the screen, making it harder to get through the day. Once too many objects appear, it'll be too hard to make it through the level, and you will lose. Or, in the game, be fired. After we knew what we were doing, we started building the game. We built the initial layout of the game with the border on the edges and the players starting in the bottom left. We really wanted the colors to pop out, so we messed with a lot of color schemes. We wanted the objects to resemble being in an office. So we started out with two objects, a tack and a stapler. If you touch a tack, you will lose the game instantly. If you get hit by a staple from a stapler, you will lose the game instantly as well. While I was making this, my sister made up what the character would look like, and she came up with what the color scheme would look like as well. I programmed the two objects and the player movement, and this is what we had so far. This was my first time building a game in Unity, and so there were a lot of bugs. But after fixing those bugs, that was the end of day 1 of 3 that I had to build this game. It's day 2. I had about 5 hours of sleep last night, but I knew I needed to get going because I was already falling behind. I didn't want the player to be sitting in the level for too long, so I made a boss enemy that would follow the player after 10 seconds of being on the level. If he touched you, you lose the game just like a tack or a staple. But this guy was insane to program for me. I had to learn a lot more about vectors or lists in C# and finding how to put vector 3s inside of them. Basically, there's just a ton of things that I had to learn while doing this, which was awesome for me. After about half the day had gone, I finally figured out how to program the boss. And this is what it looked like. I then had a pizza party at my house, but I still wanted to get working on the game, so after the pizza party, I kept working on it throughout the night. The last thing that I worked on was this dude named Fred. This Fred guy is this awkward coworker that you have that talks your ear off. He can make the game a bit more intense, especially as the boss comes closer and closer to you at the end. That was the end of day 2. Day 3. This is the last day I had to build the game, and I had to turn the game in by 10 o'clock tonight. There were still a ton of things I needed to do, including adding the artwork into the game, adding sound effects, and adding UI, not to mention making the game actually playable. I was then told that most of the artwork was probably not going to be finished before the due date of the game. So I decided to leave it just as cubes and describe it in the tutorial what they are. I added UI for the gameplay, such as clock in and clock out for where you start and where you end in the game. And I added a taskbar in the top left corner to tell how many tasks there are. I never showed you what Fred looked like, but he's that gray cube that had that text box that popped open when I ran into him. I added music and sound effects into the game, and my sister surprised me by making this game opening screen. I don't know about you, but this game opening screen made the game look 10 times better. I made the level design really quick, and I made it so that an object appears every time a task appears. My sister made the tutorial screen, and then I had 30 minutes to submit it in. I pressed publish, only to find out that everything didn't work. I tried to figure out what was wrong, and I realized that I turned my game into an iOS game last second. An iOS game is meant for an iPhone, not a computer. I missed the due date, and it felt like I wasted a ton of effort and sleep these past 3 days. I looked, and the submission button wasn't there. I turned to the comments in the game jam and realized I was not the only one, and they had another way of getting it in. Right then and there, I was the happiest man alive. I sent that baby in, and all that was left was to vote. Before I get into voting, I gotta show you the actual game. Now, this game ain't the most amazing game in the world, but it's my game, and it's the first one I ever made, so I'm super proud of it, and I'm happy that I was able to get this far in making it. I think overall, I learned a ton, and overall, this is a really good experience for me. Now, let's get back to the voting. Of the 402 entries, the game ended 172nd. Now that may seem pretty high, but my goal in this game jam was just to be in the top 50%. I loved this game jam. I felt like I succeeded, and I loved the feedback that I received from others. Thank y'all so much for taking your time to come and see my video. It really encourages me. I hope y'all have an awesome day, and I will see y'all later.